the BBC's groundbreaking 1938 sci-fi broadcast, R.U.R. Picture yourself in London on a chilly evening in early 1938. The world feels tense. There's political unrest across Europe, and technology is advancing faster than most people can keep up with. In the middle of it all, the BBC is about to broadcast something that no one's ever attempted before, a science fiction drama on live television. It's an adaptation of a play called R.U.R. by the Czech writer Karel Čapek. This might not seem like a big deal at first glance, but on February 11, 1938, it makes history as the very first time science fiction graces a TV screen anywhere in the world. To understand why this matters, you have to picture how new television was back then. Not many people even owned sets, and the technology seemed almost experimental. The BBC television service had only officially launched a couple of years earlier, in 1936. Their broadcasts were short, the cameras were bulky and finicky, and producers were still figuring out what worked for this strange new medium. Up to that point, most of what got shown was fairly straightforward. News, variety shows, or theater performances filmed almost exactly as they'd appear on stage. So taking on something as bold as a futuristic robot story was a real gamble. The play they chose to adapt, R.U.R., had already stirred people's imaginations on theater stages. Written in the early 1920s, it introduced the world to a brand new word, robot. Derived from the Czech word robota, meaning forced labor or drudgery, it captured the fear and fascination of a world hurtling toward automation. All over Europe and beyond, folks were fascinated by the idea of artificial beings that could work and think, maybe even rebel. This concept felt especially relevant because the world was in the middle of massive industrial shifts. Assembly lines, factories, and new inventions were changing what daily life looked like. Čapek's play spoke to the fear and excitement wrapped up in all that change. By 1938, R.U.R. was already famous on stage, but no one had ever tried putting it on TV. The BBC saw an opportunity to push boundaries. They were dealing with cameras that needed intense lighting and sets designed in stark black and white so they'd show up on the screen. Live television had no safety net. If something went wrong, like a flubbed line or a broken prop, everyone at home would see it. On top of that, you can imagine the pressure to make the robots look convincing without any of the fancy effects we take for granted today. But it wasn't just the technical side that carried risk. Science fiction hadn't proven itself on television yet. Some people in management might have thought, is this going to be silly or confusing for viewers? Others believed that, if it went well, it could prove how flexible and daring TV could be. The stakes felt high. Everyone from the director to the actors understood they were walking into uncharted territory. To really get why R.U.R. was the perfect choice, it helps to know a bit about Karel Čapek himself. He was born in 1890 and grew up watching a world that was transforming at lightning speed. Cars and planes were coming onto the scene, and electricity was lighting up cities in ways previous generations could only dream about. But Čapek also saw a downside. If machines got too sophisticated, or if people relied on them too heavily, where would that lead? Would we lose part of our humanity? And just as important, who would hold the power? The people who built these machines or the machines themselves if they learned to think? R.U.R. was his answer to those questions. In the play, humans mass-produce mechanical workers that eventually rise up and turn against their creators. It's a cautionary tale about what happens when our reach exceeds our grasp. On stage, it grabbed audiences by the collar, forcing them to consider the moral and ethical dimensions of playing God with technology. Adapting that tension and drama to a small TV studio in London was a daunting challenge, especially since everything would be broadcast live and in real time. Yet on February 11, 1938, the BBC pulled it off. Imagine that moment. People scattered around England, maybe huddled in a neighbor's living room because hardly anyone had a TV of their own, watching a black and white image flicker across a small screen. They're seeing actors portray both humans and robots, set in a futuristic lab run by Rossum's Universal Robots. The story thrusts these viewers into a debate about the line between man and machine, creation and creator. It questions whether humans deserve to wield such power and if we really know what we're doing when we push technology to its limits. Viewers reacted in all sorts of ways. Some were thrilled by the novelty. Others might have found it odd, maybe even a bit unsettling. This was, after all, a time when the world was on edge. Adolf Hitler's moves in Europe were ramping up tensions. War felt closer every day. People heard of new inventions and scientific breakthroughs in the news, and they wondered if these innovations would truly make life better, or just lead to more dangerous weapons. Seeing a story about rebellious robots on television, an invention barely off the ground itself, must have felt uncanny, like peering into a future that might not be entirely fictional. Reviews were mixed but mostly leaned positive. Critics recognized the BBC had done something groundbreaking, despite the obvious hurdles. They noted the clunky sets, the limited camera movements, and the lighting that had to be stark enough for viewers to see anything at all. But they also praised the ambition. This was a serious, thought-provoking play, not just a shallow attempt at special effects. The fact that it was aired live, with all the risks that entailed, only underlined the bravery of everyone involved. To grasp the bigger picture, consider what came after. Over the next few decades, television technology improved by leaps and bounds. Once World War II ended, TV sets became more common, and programming expanded. Eventually, science fiction found a regular home on television. Shows like The Twilight Zone and Doctor Who captured people's imaginations on a massive scale. Later, even more advanced series and movies, Star Trek, Star Wars, Blade Runner, Black Mirror, would explore themes about artificial intelligence and futuristic worlds. They owed a debt to that first spark, when a relatively small group of people took a chance on a robot story no one was certain would work on the fledgling medium of TV. Today, we live in a world where robots and AI aren't just concepts in a play. They build cars, vacuum our floors, help us in hospitals, and even drive some of our cars. We're grappling with moral and ethical questions about how far we should push technology, questions Čapek posed a century ago. Should machines have rights? What happens when AI surpasses human abilities in certain tasks? How do we maintain control without stifling progress? When you trace it all back, it's incredible to think it started with a playwright who worried about the pace of modernization, and a small band of BBC producers who decided to bet on a sci-fi story for a medium still in its infancy. That night in 1938 was more than a novelty. It was a bold statement that television could do more than just show variety acts and costume dramas. It could expand our collective imagination. Even though we don't have a full recording of that broadcast, technology for preserving live TV wasn't really in place then. We do know from surviving scripts, production notes, and first-hand accounts that it made an impact. People talked about it, wrote letters, discussed it in newspapers. It got them thinking about what was on the horizon. And that's the true power of stories, especially on a medium as immediate as television. They can reach into people's homes and spark conversations about the world we're building. To this day, whenever you watch a show that features androids pondering their own humanity, or see a movie about AI developing emotions, you can sense the faint echoes of R.U.R. That little play, with its quirky new word robot, started a chain reaction. Without it, we might not have the same blueprint for how we think about artificial beings, whether they're helpful companions, menacing overlords, or something in between. This is why a nearly century-old broadcast still matters. It wasn't just about a few actors pretending to be robots on a black and white screen. It was about pushing boundaries when no one else was quite sure what was possible. It was about using television to provoke thought instead of just offering light entertainment. And in doing so, it paved the way for all the bold and imaginative sci-fi we enjoy now. As we look forward, we're still dealing with the same issues that R.U.R. raised. How do we harness machines without letting them define us? Where is the balance between innovation and responsibility? The questions haven't gone away, they've just become more urgent. Every new AI breakthrough or robot invention seems to circle back to Čapek's warnings about what might happen if we don't think carefully about the consequences. It's amazing to think that a live broadcast in 1938 could echo so strongly into today. Yet here we are, still fascinated by robots, still debating their role in our lives. And so much of it traces back to the spark that was lit by a daring BBC team and a playwright's vision. It's a reminder that even modest beginnings, like a one-off TV drama in an unproven medium, can grow into something that shapes an entire genre and forces us to look at our future with both wonder and caution. Even if you've never heard of Karel Čapek or R.U.R before, you've felt their influence. Every time a sci-fi movie or show grapples with artificial beings and the humans who made them, you're seeing a ripple from that moment in history. It's a story that reminds us to keep our eyes open, to stay curious about how technology changes us, and to remember that what seems like a small step, a shaky, black and white broadcast in 1938, can end up changing the course of entertainment, culture, and how we imagine the world ahead. And that's the real magic of it all. Sometimes a quiet event in a small studio on a winter night can spark entire universes of imagination. One play, one broadcast, and the whole idea of robots, once just a word in a script, finds new life on screens around the world, shaping how we dream about tomorrow. It's a reminder that history isn't just about battles and treaties. It's also about those electrifying moments when creativity meets technology, and the spark ignites a fire that never truly goes out. But the question remains, what will we do with this inheritance? Will we continue pushing the frontiers of creativity and innovation responsibly, or will we let cautionary tales like R.U.R slip into the realm of forgotten warnings? Your role in this ongoing saga is crucial. If you found value in retracing these footsteps of history, make sure to click the links in the description and the first pinned comment for further insights. You'll find reading recommendations, perhaps even the original R.U.R script, and deep dive articles on early television experiments. If you believe in the power of historical storytelling to enlighten and inspire, consider subscribing to this channel. Hit the notification bell, leave a comment sharing your thoughts on the legacy of R.U.R, and give this video a thumbs up to help spread the word. Together, we keep the flame of curiosity alive, reminding ourselves that every new invention, every robot we bring into the world, carries both promise and peril. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and remember, history is never just about the past. It's our ever-evolving guide to the future.